Good evening, everybody. Lovely to be able to do this finally live streaming with Backto60. And I hope that what I say will be of interest to you and will be helpful in what we're actually doing. What I intend to do is just to talk for about 15 minutes. I'll try and keep an eye on my clock for that, and try and give you some background so that you know who I am and what it is that I do for Backto60. And then after that, I'll have a little look at the list if you put questions in, not now, but after 15 minutes, because it's quite difficult to talk and keep an eye on a whole stream of comments that are coming along on one side of the screen. And in the meantime, I think the admin will help me if I tend to miss anything, or they'll be looking out for things and will let me know what's going on. So good evening, everybody. My name is Dr. Davina Lloyd, and I am the UN rep at CEDAW for Backto60. Now, I hope from what you've been listening to in previous live streams that that makes some sense to you. If I can just give you a little bit of background about how I became involved. Let's start with the fact that I'm a 1950s woman, like all of you. And I have on my email address a crowdfunder website, and occasionally they contact me. And in October 2017, nearly 3 years ago, they put up a crowdfunder for a group I'd never heard of called Backto60, who were funding to do something about the pensions for 1950s women. And I sent them £20 and thought it was a good cause and something that I wished to support. Little did I know where that would get me, because they asked you why. Why were you wanting to support this group? And I hope my sound hasn't gone. The number there seems to have changed. Oh, we're back again now. Why did I want to support them? And so I gave them a little bit of my history, that I'd been campaigning since I was 18 for equal rights for women. Very soon that'll be nearly 50 years coming up on this, of trying to get equal rights for women. I do hope the sound isn't going in and out, because it is, according to my computer, going backwards and forwards. Might be something to do with the wind outside, the varying things, but we don't know. And Joanne got in touch with me and said, are you free on November the 23rd, I think it was? I happen to be. Can you come into town? Can you film at Conway Hall? So I went in to Conway Hall, met the most incredible women, the most outstanding women. And we filmed with Jasper, who has done all of our filming. And we met the amazing Ken Loach, Daniel Blake. I think we're going to be the next big film story at the rate we're going. And Joanne says to me, not just a film, you know, Davina, we're also hoping for a book and a museum. So I think things are just going from strength to strength the whole time. After that, next thing I knew, she was sending me off to Geneva the following spring to attend the CEDAW meeting. With lots of other women there. I was the representative for Backto60, and I explained to the group, the committee that deals with discrimination against women, how we had been discriminated against, how 1950s women had in fact been made, as Michael Mansfield says, a subclass of women, and that we needed to make sure the government did something about this under CEDAW. And that resulted in lots of different meetings, going backwards and forwards to CEDAW. And in their 2019 report, of course, they castigated the government for not helping with the women's pensions. And they weren't the only one, because on this journey, I also met Professor Alston when he was here. in that the previous November, looking at austerity measures and the impact on women in the UK. We all know that 86% of austerity measures in the 10 years of the most austerity impacted upon women, 86% impacted on women. And of those, a large amount of the austerity affected 1950s women who were already discriminated against. And then, as you will have seen in our latest triple whammy, we've also been hit by the COVID crisis. And as Rishi Sunak has said, it is those who were most financially disadvantaged who were most affected. And that's us as well, apart from the fact that we're of an age where the World Health Organization say we should be shielding, and the government have ignored that advice. And apart from anything else, we are also doing, lots of us who are still at work, having frontline jobs and being out there on the tills, in the care homes, in hospitals, and putting ourselves at risk because many of us have no choice because we have to get money from somewhere. So everything has brought us to the point that we're at now. I feel very privileged to have been part of this wonderful team. Admin here are brilliant. The whole team is amazing, amazing women. Our defendants, Karen and Julie, are just incredibly strong women. And I'm privileged to have been able to join with them. And what has happened, yes, it's taken a long time, but because of all the delays that they've put in, we have been able to come up with even more evidence than we had before of total discrimination. And the latest one, of course, you've all listened to David Henke. I say this for new members who may not have caught up on this, is the absolutely atrocious mismanagement, really can only be described as that, where they decided to support 4.6 million men at the same time as totally dismissing the 3.8 million 1950s women. The reasoning for that is just incompetence, I think, but it was the case that when Margaret Thatcher didn't want there to be more than 3 million unemployed, she set up through the government a mechanism by which 90,000 men at the time could retire at 60, and the government would pay their pension contributions for an extra 5 years. This meant that they wouldn't be going on the dole, and it would mean that there wouldn't be large numbers of unemployed. The government somehow forgot to stop paying that and kept paying it, I think, right up until possibly 2018 before it was finished. The idea was at some stage, possibly in 2009, that women would also be given the same advantage that men had been given. But it was Gordon Brown who cancelled that in 2008, 2009, before it was due to happen. So we didn't even get that either. It just seems to be, I think, as George Osborne says, the easiest thing to do is to take money from women. One of the easiest ways he's ever got lots of money. So we all know that they've stolen from the pension pot, £271 billion missing, which could have meant that both men and women could have retired at 60. They have treated us appallingly. What they should have done, what should happen with any legislation that's brought in, is that there should be an impact assessment as you set the legislation in. You should see what the impact is going to be on the stakeholders. And secondly, you should give notice. Neither of those things were done when they changed the pensions for 1950s women. No other group of women have been as badly affected as we have, because all generations that follow us, anyone who went into the workplace after 1975, so that's anyone born from 1960 onwards, had the benefits of the 1975 Sex Discrimination Act. and the whole series of things that were going to that have happened, obviously not as many as we would have liked, but things have changed for the better, so that the younger generations, those younger than us, were able to build up their own pensions, were able to get credit for childcare and for caring responsibilities, were able to work part-time and still pay into a pension, the national insurance scheme. None of those things affected us. We were discriminated against in every single possible way. The result of that is that the average woman born in the 1950s retires on only a fifth, 1/5, 20% of the pension pot of the average man born in the 1950s. Equalising at an age of 65 or 66 doesn't mean equalising outcome. And the problem that we've got, and the reason why CEDAW is so important, and Jackie has explained all of this, is that our 2010 Equal Opportunities Act only gives equality of opportunity, not of outcome. So if you want to get, for example, more women in Parliament, what you then have to do is use CEDAW, and you have to use a temporary special measure, as various parties in Parliament have used. Tony Blair did, to get all those women in, Blair's babes early on. You have to put through a temporary special measure, because it doesn't give you equality of outcome unless you use CEDAW. CEDAW has been used in Parliament before. There is no reason why it can't be used again, and it is there to put right past injustices, and we can show them all of the past injustices. Justice Lang, at that very first hearing, when we first went to court to see if we could actually follow this through in our judicial review, was so impressed by our case that she let us go forward on every single point, and she dismissed the government's case on every single point. That is how good our case is. I think I've said enough now, and I'm prepared to start answering your questions. So I'm going to have a little look in a moment. If you want to start typing in, I'm going to have a little look at what is coming up. I apologize for the sound quality. I can't hear what's going on. So I can see that the sound comes and goes on my machine, and I don't know if that's my machine or it's happening all the time. There doesn't seem to be a way of dealing with that. So once again, apologies for the sound quality. There is some sort of delay as well. Oh, thank you, Gina. Gina's just said thank you. Lots of people have said hi. Hi, everybody. Good to see you. Good to see so many new members. Thank you so much. I hope you are learning a lot, finding out a lot about us. But if you have, I've rushed through a whole range of different things, which I know are covered in other broadcasts as well. And I just wondered, if you do have any questions, I'm more than happy to have a look at them and to answer any questions. A few weeks ago, I was due to come on and talk to you about the Equal Pay Act. I think that has gone now. We couldn't get connected at all then. But a lot of work still needs to be done on equal pay as well. There are so many issues that need to be put right. If only we could start by getting CEDAW incorporated into UK law, life for girls and women of all ages would be so much better. Yeah, good evening, everybody. Thank you. Yes, lots of good evenings. Lots nice to see you. The other thing about CEDAW is that if you haven't been following this story, we did do one of those petitions that you can do where if you get so many signatures, things have to be looked at by the government. And we got a huge number of signatures. And the government's immediate response was, CEDAW protects all girls, all women. It doesn't matter whether they're BAME women, black and ethnic minorities. It doesn't matter whether they're disabled, whether they're lesbian, whether they're sex workers, whether they're any sort of women. As long as they're women, CEDAW means that you have to treat them properly, equally, and address issues. And the government's reply, which was online for a long time, said they couldn't possibly bring in CEDAW because it would be disadvantageous to those groups who were not covered by CEDAW. Now, if you think about it, the only group I can think of that is not covered by something that protects all women, all ages, all types, everything, the only group is men. So the government's reason for not introducing CEDAW or not incorporating it into UK law is that it doesn't protect men. Men would be disadvantaged by having women equal to them. It takes me back 45 years so to when I was first campaigning, 48 years ago now, first campaigning. Yes, somebody said Rishi said a lot but hasn't done much. Yes, exactly. Do write to him. I have written. He needs to know that this could actually be a really good way of giving youngsters jobs. Let over 60s women retire. Let the 1950s women retire. They've been working long enough. Give their jobs to the young. It'll save the unemployment figures that way. But if I go back to the very beginning, men are quite frightened of women, and particularly the women are very strong and sensible and everything else. And when I was at university, I got married. Joe and I met him in Newham when he was over fact finding for his report back to the UN on poverty and austerity. And amazing man. Now his job's being done by somebody else now. But I followed him out to Geneva. He was very, very supportive. He asked for me to come out when he gave his report to the UN Human Rights Council, because they very much consider that poverty is a human rights issue. And he said that what the government have done to us was unconscionable. You wouldn't do it if you had a conscience. And he said the government doesn't have a conscience because you couldn't treat women like this. And it's not just one thing, it's one thing after another. I know since I retired, I went from having, I retired early, but I retired expecting to get a full pension. And in between me getting my pension and retiring, they changed my pension 6 times, often without any notification whatsoever. Right, lights have come on now in the background. And never, not in my favour, changing the years that I needed to contribute from 30 to 35, getting rid of the married women's contribution, meaning I couldn't buy back years because they were too far away and I hadn't been told in time. And I should apparently have bought them back when I didn't need to buy them back because I already was getting a full pension. And then they changed the rules and then it was too late. I mean, you couldn't make it up. You literally couldn't make it up what this government has done to women. And I saw lots of comments coming up there. I know Sheila had put things on about how unjust the whole system is. And yes, it is. It is obvious discrimination against women. And the world needs to know this story. The very beginning, sorry, I'm rattling on again now. I talked about there being a page that comes up that collects and says, do you want to contribute to this, that, or the other? That's how I got involved with Back to60. Well, one came up a few weeks ago. Did I want to contribute to a book that they were going to make about what's happened in the NHS and the people that have died and people have worked so hard, etc., during this crisis? And I said, yes, I would contribute. And if you put in so much money, you would get a book at the end of it if it goes ahead. And quite frankly, we need the book about us. We need Ken Loach, that wonderful man, to come back again and film with us. We need Jasper to put everything together. This is a story that has more impact than Made in Dagenham. This is a story of persistent discrimination over years and years and years, and has been in operation since I was a youngster at university, and then found that you couldn't go to university as a married woman because nobody in government wanted married women to be educated. The Conservatives said if you educate women, they will want to go out to work, and they won't be in the kitchen making dinner for when their husband comes home, and the whole of society will fall apart. And the Labour Party said you can't possibly educate women. If you have educated women coming out into the workplace, they'll take the jobs of men, and we're here to protect the jobs of men. Women have always been second-class citizens, if that. As Michael Mansfield says, we are a subclass of women because we are the group who have been most discriminated against over and over again. And CEDAW says to the government, you must put this right. And the government just wants to ignore it, Interestingly, of course, Boris, when he was in electioneering mode, said he would look at this again with fresh eyes and vigour. And he's done not a single thing. Because there's a big difference between what you say when you want somebody to vote for you and what you do once they have voted for you. And Boris has let us all down very, very badly. Not just over the pensions, but over the COVID issue as well. Because his advisor, Dominic Cummings, said, you don't have to shield these over 60s. So what if a few oldies die? I mean, talk about not having a conscience, Unbelievable. Right, I hope that's coming over. My signal probably is still quite bad, so I'm I'm not sure exactly what's coming over. I hope most of what I've said you've been able to hear. I don't know, there's an awful lot I can do about my poor, poor broadband speed on this. If loads of people putting things on again. If there is anything that needs to come up, I'm far better on radio and on Zoom. I do Zoom very good. But on 14th of July, I will be with the wonderful Ian Rothwell, talking more in depth about the issues. And that'll be Salford Radio. I'm sure there will be a link on Back to60 about it. And you'll be able to see that. Things are happening on my screen now. Don't quite know what's happening. I just need to get rid of a few things on here. So we're doing a pre-recording next week for going out, Ian Rothwell, on Radio Salford on the 14th of July. And hopefully I will be able to address some of the issues again more coherently over the radio than I can with this internet connection. please just spread the word about CEDAW, keep writing to your MPs and write to the Chancellor. Just fill up their inboxes with this injustice. And just let them know. I mean, I'm just cannot believe how many women still aren't aware of all the issues. And CEDAW just won't just help us, it'll help all women, all ages. And so, you know, that's more than half of the population. We've got to do it for more than half of the population. Right, I can't see any questions coming up. I don't know whether this bit is still being recorded. What's going to happen is that Backto60 will keep a recording and they will be able to stream it afterwards so that you will be able to listen to it. And I know I did rush through so much at the beginning. Hopefully you'll be able to listen to it again once they put the recording back on. So lovely to see you all. My time is coming up now anyway. I hope I have given you some facts and information about what's going on. And thank you for all your support for Backto60. You have the most amazing team working on your behalf. We're all volunteers. We all do it in our own time. We don't get any pay for it. It's part of a really big group of women who are determined to make things better and put things right. We cannot allow these injustices to continue. Thank you so much, everybody, and thank you for joining me this evening.